because the universe is not peaceful. It's not pacific. If you go to space there, it is a wild place. It's essentially violent. Things explode everywhere. Things fly everywhere. Things are violent. Planets hit each other, explode. It's full of violence. So we as human beings are pieces of it. So it will only make sense that violence and aggressivity is inherent in our genes because it's where we come from. That is usually my argument to explain the violence when I say human nature, to explain the violence that we see everywhere. Because even the primitive people in Africa and everywhere else, primitive society, they say, in quote unquote primitive, because again, it's very, I don't like that, but just for the sake of our conversation, even in these ancient societies, they weren't peaceful. They had their own tribal wars and killing each other and all. So fundamentally, inherently, there's that notion of violence in us. So when I told you human nature, it's just how you canalize it, how you channel that, to what advantage, to what goal. That's what makes a difference. So the European developed their own asili, their own way of doing, and then channel that violence and put a spin on it to justify it. Like it is for the greater good. It's for the sake of humanity. You know, because we advance, we civilize, we have the duty, the burden to civilize other people. So even if it means we should kill them and take their thing, it's for their own good. So they put a spin on it to rationalize violence. So any Western violence is rationalized because it's for the greater good. But any indigenous violence, no, it's because they're animal, they're primitive. You can see now where the problem springs, where the problem starts. So that's why the problem is. So does that make sense? Your whole notion of human nature thing. Fixed characteristics exist, what nature characteristics are and all that. So this is basically the question about human nature. So if a truly fixed characteristic exists, are we really born with those characteristics? You know, what these natural characteristics are and what causes them. Like your question was, what causes that? What causes that? You know, are among the oldest questions, you know, important questions. So, and then in philosophy and science and all this, people have debated them, right? So, and you can see from many perspectives here. If you go philosophy in Greek, who started debating these things, you know, like even Plato, it started with Socrates, who started, because philosophy and thinking in Greece at the time was more about nature, to really understand nature, you know, the universe and all that. And when Socrates came, he split that from thinking about nature to actually trying to understand human beings. Who are we as human beings? What is our nature? What kind of people are we, or what is our destiny? So Socrates shifted the focus on philosophical reflection, and Plato, who was Socrates' student, now followed him and wrote everything about Socrates and started developing what now later became the European asili. So that's how the whole thing started, you know, that philosophy and everything, right? To begin to really reflect on human nature and all things like that. So, and you can see they say, yeah, even Aristotle, very respected Western philosopher, say philosophical study of human nature itself began with Socrates, you know, who turned philosophy from study of heavens to study of human things. And then say, I have studied the question of how persons should should best live, you know. But he left no written work, but Plato took over that. And Socrates was a rationalist, no reason, and believed that the best life and life most suited to human nature involved reasoning. Again, you can see where Plato came from, reasoning, you know, and then that started developing, and then they started setting themselves apart. You know, people who reason and people who don't reason. That's where we start. You know, what does you may see again human nature. That's where the split in human nature begin to originate. And then if you move to Chinese thought and all these things, you can look. You know, for example, the person who governed Chinese culture from Taiwan to China and everything is Confucius. you know, and he studied human nature, and he said for Confucius, human nature is essentially good, and that's why anywhere you go in China or Taiwan, and these things really frustrates me a little bit. They hate bad news. They never say bad news. My best friend here in Taiwan never told me when his mom died. But any other good news that he has, even if it's insignificant, he will tell me. Because the culture just prevents to even talk about anything negative. Because the culture is developed here to believe that humans are fundamentally good or should fundamentally be good. And that comes from Confucius, right? But the warrior, Sun Tzu, would develop the art of war, you know, and that's what Chinese explored when they defeated the U.S. and the United Nations in the Korean War in the north there, because they used Sun Tzu method, you know, to hide and then come back and hide and all that thing. So he thought that human nature was essentially evil. And if you don't know about him, I suggest you really learn about him. This guy, you must know him in terms of understanding a lot of things, especially in the evilness of human nature. Okay, and then you go to Christianity that also talked about human nature, right? You know, conceiving human nature, spiritual, biblical, and theistic. That's one part of the Bible, and then the second part is natural, cosmical, and anti-theistic. So even religion has its own way of developing human nature. So, and then you can go on, and then you have a million versions of what human nature is. So so there isn't really a single answer to that. So I don't really think we'll be able to actually start this chapter today. So hopefully next time we'll start right away in this, and we can tackle the first part, complement of European self-image, and then tackle the black. Why are other people black? So if we can do that next time, then we'll do those two sections. All right. Why are people black? Like next time, because we really went way over time and we don't really have enough time. So I'm saying next time we'll talk about the complement of the European self-image. That is a subtitle. We'll discuss that section there in the book. And if we have enough time, we'll discuss the next section, why the other is black, non-white, the other.